We welcome you to our neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation service. Thank you for joining us. My name is Allison Kabayama, and I will be your service weaver this morning. We start today's service by creating a sacred space, and I invite you to join me in reading our invocation. Let us pass the circle of the sacred space here. Let us pass the circle of a cherished space here. A space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft in our space and in ourselves the seeds that grow a different kind of life. A life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families. This morning I've asked Luann to light our chalice. We'll have a chalice lighting video. We light this chalice to remember, to light the fire within our own hearts. Our prelude this morning will be provided by Micheal.
Chose this piece on the theme of grieving and creativity. It was written when a really good friend of mine's son suddenly died. I was sitting in the forest contemplating the fleeting nature of life. Sapphire sparkle along the breeze. The symphony light sings in my heart. Touching the sings in my heart. Touching keys and whispering leaves, diamonds dancing upon the seas. I too just reflected a little spark, disappearing into the golden stream, living pillars kiss the sky. A time I'm so short and sweet. Oh, the precious jewel of this moment, the play of life upon the earth, tears, laughter, pain, love before it's gone. My lover is the open sky, embraced by clouds as they float by. My heart beats in time with a song. Ephemeral, changing, shifting tides, life the radiant glow of each new dawn. Every moment I mourn the death of this and open up to each new bliss. Our time on earth, so short but sweet. Oh, the precious jewel of this moment, the clear light upon the earth, tears, laughter, pain, love before it's gone.
Thank you, Michael. Today, many of those of us who are joining on Zoom are in our own homes. And let us remember that these homes and this, our spiritual home, are on this traditional land and territories of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee nations. Indigenous people have been recognizing and acknowledging the land at the start of gatherings for time immemorial. Using and participating in a land acknowledgement is a way to recognize the enduring presence and resilience of Indigenous peoples. It is also a reminder that we are all accountable to our relationships with these nations, these people, and I will work to honor these relationships. I say good morning again and welcome. Our musical director is Suzanne Mazars, who is away this morning. Zoriah Getchell facilitates our children's program. Our speaker is the Reverend E.N. Hill, who I will be introducing more fully later in the service. Our musical guest is Micheal Moon, who I know as a longtime Unitarian Universalist, and as the son of a longtime neighborhood member, Maggie Cambanis, but also from Unicamp, where Michael offers his magical music and musical workshops, often in the month of August. Thank you for being here. We are open to many beliefs and learn from many traditions. We welcome all people who are looking for a spiritual community. If you are visiting us in person for the first time, we welcome and encourage you to stay after service for coffee time. And our services can vary from week to week, so we encourage you to sample a few to get a better feel for who we are. Our mission at Neighborhood is to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of our world. Our theme for March is grief, healing the wounds of loss. And our theme for today is grieving as a spiritual path. Grief can cause us to turn inwards, reflecting and possibly reconsidering who we are in light of our losses. Society can sometimes pressure us and pressure the aggrieved to simply get on with life. I was given to believe that there was little or no time for weakness. But I know more now, and I believe that we truly cannot ignore grief or carry on without carrying with us deep and sometimes debilitating wounds. Grief can fuel our artistic expression as we release our heartache, sadness, loss, or confusion. There are many great artists and social justice advocates, I think, of their creative path, whose particular endeavors were created in the midst of following hardships. It helps us sometimes to make sense of our feelings through therapeutic and or creative outlets. Experiences of grief in my life have made clear to me my preferences for peace, love, and practicing and receiving encouragement in relationship. I feel I have become generally more accepting, more patient, and more understanding of myself and others. Grief has also deepened my empathy and helped to inform me in my inadequate, though genuine attempts to support and console others in their times of grief. For me, my grief can be greatest for those words left unsaid or deeds left undone that cannot be said or done now. This has caused me to develop a renewed impetus to speak now and walk the talk now, to do the necessary and essential things now, to speak fully, to act, create, and embrace life now. In the words of the American writer, novelist, and prominent advocate of the rights of women and racial equality, Pearl S. Buck, who wrote, "Sorrow fully accepted brings its own gifts, for there is alchemy in sorrow. It can be transmuted into wisdom, which, if it does not bring joy, can yet bring happiness." And I would interpret this to mean that fulfillment is also possible. So now it's time to greet our neighbors around you. After you've greeted a few neighbors, maybe turn to the camera at the back wall and offer a greeting to those who are joining us virtually. And Kim will sound the chime to end.
Hi, everyone. Hi,
Morning,
Micheal.
everyone.
Hello.
Michelle.
Hi, Peter.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Sadia.
Monica.
Michelle, Zoriah.
Yes. Hi,
Hi,
Gail.
Sanctuary.
Michelle.
Yes, good morning, Virginia.
Everyone.
To our
Hi,
lovely
Veronica.
wife. I'm glad you're
Hi,
here.
Nadia.
Hi, Deb.
Alicia. Good
Hi, Bill and
morning.
Brenda.
Good morning, everyone.
Good to
Good
see everyone.
morning. Jesse.
Hi, Valerie.
Uh-huh.
Hi, Peter.
Hi,
Hello to the
Peter.
sanctuary.
Jinx. Reverend Hill. Hello.
And I invite Michael to share our first congregational song. Sorry.
So one of the things that brings on grief is endings. As many say, an ending is just a beginning or a change of form. So this is leading into the children's section. It's a very simple idea of the change of form, the cycle of water in our life and how its change of form brings life. And I invite you to join in the refrain. We are part of a circle, a circle, a circle of the one. River is flowing, flowing, flowing. The river is flowing, giving to the sea. We are part of the circle, circle, circle of the one. We are part of a circle, circle, circle of the one. Sea is rising, rising, rising. The sea is rising, in the sky. We are part of the circle, circle, circle of the one. We are part of the circle, circle, circle of the one. Clouds are forming, We are part of the circle, of one. River is flowing, flowing, flowing. The river is flowing into the sea. We are part of a circle, of the one. We are part of the circle, of the one.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to invite any of the young at heart to come down to the front because it's time for our time for all ages. So before we start today, I want to thank Ian Hill, who has come today to talk about grief as a creative path, as a creative process, as well as Micheal Moon, who's joined us today to offer the beautiful music for this service. I want to thank you both for coming. For our time for all ages today, I wanted to share my own creative piece of grieving. Some of you know that I had to withdraw from the school I was learning about aesthetics due to my current health. That was really hard for me, and I'm still feeling grief about it. Really, this service comes at a perfect time for me. So I wrote this poem that I'm going to share with you, inspired by my teacher, Lindsay. She would tell us an esthetician is like a swan. You appear to be floating graceful and calm, but below the surface of the water, your little paddles or your little flippers are paddling away wildly, trying to keep you afloat. Thank you, Lindsay. This is called Swan Song. Her neck is long and slender and curved into a hook. Her body soft and graceful as she settles on the brook. She sits on lakes and streams and slowly floats low. And when she's seen, it's often heard, what a pretty swan. So delicate and poised, so calm and full of grace, she swims through life with not one look of sadness on her face. But all is never known by those who live above the deep, and rarely do they see the struggle going on beneath. The frantic flippers paddle at a plain, perilous pace as she works with all her might to keep up in this race against the weight that wants to push her down below, this gravity that pulls against her everywhere she goes. So mindful of her struggles, she fiercely paddles on, and head raised high, she separately sings her silent song. But what's to happen when her little paddles start to fail, or when the water turns to mud and she can no longer sail? When swimming turns to sinking and your head is full of fear, when the path ahead is broken up and no longer so clear, when your heart is filled with sorrow and you're drowning from the pain, you'll spread your mighty wings and rise above the waves again. You'll fly and find a safer and a nicer place to rest, a place where you can build a solid, permanent kind of nest. And as you soar above the waves and leaves of trees so green, you'll hear from those below, that's the best thing today I've seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoriah.
Before we get started, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for inviting me on this day, and you for the depth of your sharing. Even though we were having tech difficulties, I was able to catch a few pieces of the shares, and it just honors me so deeply in a community that shows such intimacy. And I also just want to thank everyone who's been working so hard to resolve the tech issues. Um, I pray that the moment of singing and breathing in peace and breathing out love bring some calm and a sense of settledness to this time together. And for my actual talk, I begin with a story. When I was a young teenager, I experienced a loss that organically and all on its own forced itself to be expressed creatively. I will say up front that it wasn't the healthiest of expression. Like I said, I was a teenager, so I'm going to blame it on hormones. But still, I shared the story as acknowledgement that there was a certain amount of wisdom in my creative response. I'd always been considered a sensitive and emotional kid, even though I rarely cried or shared my feelings verbally. I was shy and didn't have many friends, and I spent much of my time daydreaming or reading. But there was one teacher, Mrs. Papakostas, Miss P for short, somehow just seemed to get me. Miss P taught me to open up and share my thoughts and dreams for my future. She listened to my stories about my family and the lack of connection I often felt with them. And she encouraged me to seek the kind of community that I craved. She convinced me to join a program for academically advanced students and connected me to the chess club. Miss P would also ask me deep existential questions about God and what I believed in. And she became the first adult I came out to when I discovered that I was queer. Long after I moved on from her middle school classes, she remained a mentor to me. I'd visit her whenever my schedule would allow, but one day, summer break, I showed up at Miss P's classroom door only to find a different teacher in her place. I was told that Miss P had and moved out of the area. I completely lost it. Although I hadn't known anything about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, I ran through my own version of them. At first, I was in denial and I tried to get her on the phone. I tried to figure out where she moved to so I could hear the news from her directly. And when that didn't work, I started skipping school, inwardly hoping retirement to come back and get me in line. And then came the art, wild, angry art. There was expletive-filled journaling that turned into poetry expressing feelings of abandonment and hurt. Then I somehow got my hands on cans of spray paint and had every intention on tagging my school with words of that same hurt. Again, this was not the healthiest of expression, but luckily, a security guard that knew my mama was a correctional officer who raised me to know better, they got a hold of me and dragged me to the school counselor's office. The counselor saw the recent shift in my grades, the number of classes skipped, and knew that something was going on with me, even though I didn't want to admit my feelings. Miss P hadn't been my direct teacher for years, so my teen mind thought I was being silly for feeling sad that my old teacher was retiring. Eventually, I opened up to the counselor and learned about disenfranchised grief, which occurs after a loss that others yourself might not see as valid. It often accompanies statements like, they just moved, it's not like so and so died or something, or you weren't even that close to so and so. Here in this community, I know that Reverend Wayne is retiring or perhaps has already retired, and I imagine that you all easily recognize the accompanying grief of losing him as your mentor. But in case someone needs to hear it, please know that your grief is valid. Losing a trusted teacher, a spiritual mentor, a community leader is hard. Grief can be experienced in many different ways through an endless number of life scenarios, be it the end of a relationship, a divorce, a death. Grief may come from a diagnosis of serious illness or a disability or retirement, unexpected job loss, or empty nest syndrome. Any perceived loss can bring the experience of grief. On the heels of a global pandemic with a virus that is still claiming lives, we as a human race have recently experienced pain and loss collectively, not just through the loss of so many lives, but also the forced change of life on so many levels for so many people. The loss of a certain level of freedom, restrictions, or reluctance to gather has also caused deep emotional pain for huge numbers of people. Yet, although it is a common and immensely intense and life-changing experience, the accompanying grief is talked about very little, which means that people start to think that their feelings are not valid and maybe start to believe that grieving means that there is something wrong with them or that they are in some way for not just getting on with things. Again, in case someone needs to hear it, please know that your grief is valid. There is nothing weak about grieving. Grief is experienced by many as feeling completely overwhelmed and consumed by intense feelings. An image of a tsunami swallowing land as it powerfully descends upon a shore conjures up how powerful these feelings can be. This intensity is magnified because there is a cacophony of feelings that can happen either at once or in close succession to each other. These tend to include anger, sadness, and fear, as well as frustration. These feelings can bring confusion and an inability to function. Many people experience exhaustion as their energy is depleted when attempting to manage the feelings that seem to seize the body during this time. I have heard the experience of grief described by many, both in my work as a hospital chaplain and as having a breakdown. Donna Collins, author of Faith in Everyday Life and psychotherapist and evolutionary teacher, describes the term breakdown as a, quote, dissolving of defenses and adaptations of the psyche that keep emotions under wraps and provide a strong enough ego to retain sufficient confidence. In short, a breakdown could therefore be described as a surrender, a breach in the armor of emotion in which the ego is also forced to acknowledge and that nothing can be done to change or control the events. Collins goes on to say that in these moments of surrendering, something shifts within the self. When the ego surrenders, new insight emerges. Deep wisdom arises within a person that is somehow outside of logical or intellectual thought. Profound insight and wisdom often emerges through this doorway called grief. The essence of this experience can be depicted by the Persian poet Rumi when he wrote, quote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." The full passage reads as a conversation, perhaps a conversation with the divine. Rumi writes, quote, I said, what about my eyes? He said, keep them on the road. I said, what about my passion? He said, keep it burning. I said, what about my heart? He said, tell me what you hold inside it. I said, pain and sorrow. He said, stay with it. The wound is the place where the light enters you. As Rumi suggests, the light lies within the pain and deep wounding of grief. The natural propensity for most people is to attempt to turn away and avoid the pain, and it is easy for people to turn away from the light too. However, if the pain can be listened to and felt while being placed in the metaphoric arms of compassion, vibrant flowing energy starts to emerge from the light. This flowing energy that seems to rise from the depths of a person often is cosmic and can initially be experienced as acceptance and peace. Often, something else that flows if a person can continue to listen to acceptance and peace is a constant stream of ideas and possibilities arising from the same place. This is creativity. Dr. Shelley Carson, a lecturer at Harvard University and author of Your Creative Brain, 7 Steps to Maximize Imagination and Innovation in Your Life, has said, quote, loss and creativity are 2 essential parts of the human experience. And when we experience loss personally, creativity might just be the best way out. In her book, Carson notes that there are 2 types of creativity: innovative creativity, which is best suited for problem solving, and expressive creativity, which can be used to help negative energy be channeled into creative work as a means to assist with loss or trauma. According to Carson's research, grief causes the brain to become flooded with neurochemicals and hormones. It wasn't just being a teenager, that results in a deactivation of the left prefrontal areas of the brain, which is the hemisphere specializing in positive emotions like joy and hope, while the right hemisphere, which is the one that's more active during periods of grief, is responsible for dispensing emotions and anxiety. Creativity is a left-brained activity that can help redirect the effects of grief because it reactivates the hemisphere of hope. This research shows that the mere expression of emotion in artistic form when you are hurting is beneficial. When experiencing a deep sense of loss, a person may not feel creatively inclined at first. Dr. Carson recommends figuring out the bare minimum you can do that will make you feel okay, noting that on some days this might be nothing, and on other days recommends choosing specific creative activities. The creative work of grief can look like any number of projects or processes. Some examples, as has been shared by the community, include writing poems or songs or prose to express the complicated emotions and thoughts that accompany the journey of grief. The song that we sang together, Meditation on Breathing, is a song that was created from the space of grief. According to an interview shared on Him blog farfringe.com, songwriter Sarah Dan Jones composed Meditation on Breathing just after the tragic events of the September 11th terrorist attacks in the United States. She stated, "I was so filled with despair, and I needed to channel that into some hope." The creative work of grief can also look like making sculptures or drawings or paintings that capture moments from your life before and following a grief event. It could include tending a home altar, memory box, or garden designed to remember a loved one. It could include quilting, as was done with my Ottawa community as a project of the grief of me leaving as their intern. It can look like engaging in a daily meditation practice, volunteering your energy and skills to support a worthwhile cause, or even creating an organization or foundation that supports others who might be experiencing similar grief. Work that is intentionally made or done in response to grieving and healing is creative grief work, whether or not it looks creative or artistic to anyone else. This work may provide a temporary stepping stone to move you from one moment to the next, or it could become the foundation for a new path. As I prepare to close my talk, I'd like to invite you all to try a simple practice that has been said to counter effects of anxiety, stress of grief, and enhance creativity, clarity, and a sense of calm. It is a symbolic hand gesture called the Hakini Mudra. Mudras are known to be sacred postures or gestures in Buddhism and Hinduism, used often during yoga or meditation practice as a means of channeling the flow of vital life force energy. The Hakini Mudra is named after the goddess Hakini, who personifies the energy of the third eye chakra and represents imagination, intuition, and inner knowing. All of these things to access the profound insight emerging through the doorway of grief. To practice this gesture, first bring the palms of one's hand face to face, one another a few inches apart, and bring the fingertips and thumbs of both hands together, allowing them to maintain light contact. By bringing together the fingertips of both hands, the energy of the two sides of the body become connected, increasing coordination between the right and left hemispheres of the brain. Imagine your fingers bridging a connection between sadness and joy. If it is available to you and you are willing to participate, I invite you to practice this mudra with me while singing the beginning lines of hymn number 1002, Comfort Me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Thank you.
And because it's our sharing month or sharing campaign, I'm going to invite Steve Kohler to come up and share a message.
Thanks, Allison. Hi, everybody. This will be the last little speech from about giving. And I know a couple of weeks ago, I heard some numbers, and I was rather impressed by the generosity of the congregation. That's fantastic. I know when I came here several years ago, I was very impressed. I'd never seen anything like this community. And yeah, it's been wonderful. So there's lots of ways to give, and for me as a pensioner, I look every month, and I find the e-transfers are a very friendly way to do it, very quick and easy, and it's important to keep things going. We've had. Well, I feel like the world needs more neighborhood. It's tough out there, and we've got a beautiful thing going here. Yes, indeed. So I've had a bit of a few body blows, so to speak. We lost a lot of members when we lost a minister, and last year wasn't the greatest for investments. We're spending more than we're bringing in. So, but I do appreciate everybody's generosity. That's for darn sure. I heard it bandied about that it costs maybe $30 a person per service. So that there are expenses. We've got great people here to take care of things. So I thank you very much. There's a potluck on Saturday, as was mentioned before, at 6:30 on Saturday. So to celebrate the contribution and charity of everybody. Thank you, and let's keep us going. Let's keep us strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Steve. So if the greeters can pass the baskets, please. We do have I think we have a song for the offering. We have a video actually of the Comfort Me song, which Ian led us in. I'll be quiet and we can enjoy that.
Come
acceptance here, if you have found home here, if you have known kindred spirits here, let this offering be a token of gratitude for our common life as we build the common good. And let's stand up because it's been a while, and Michael's going to lead us in our closing song.
It's a little bit of a meditation, but it's also meditation. At the end, we will join together with a very simple refrain. We will get it. Oh, that we've made, oh, that we are, everything we saved, every planet, every star, all things in time combined. The animals, the trees, the flowers and the stones, the mountains and the seas, all we have known, all things in time combined. Oh, we love, oh, we fear, every country, every race, every song and every tear, all things in time combined. All things in time combined. All is one. 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 All things in time combined. All things in time
Is Kim here? Oh, sorry, Luann. I'm sorry.
Lance, you're
Luann, come and extinguish the chalice. Although our chalice has been darkened, we hold the fire within our own hearts. So I'll just remind you that our question for the breakout rooms and perhaps for after coffee time conversation is, how has creativity in your life been informed by grief? And I'd like to invite Ian to share our closing blessing.
Can you all hear me? Yes. Good. My closing words are titled Feel That, and it was written by Gwen Matthews. Do you feel that? Each breath, every inhale and exhale, we are living, breathing, connected. We are the whole, complete, beautiful selves that we were born to be. Feel that? In your bones, in your muscles, in your heart, in your blood, that this is the extraordinary you, the you who was born for this time, this place, this moment. Feel that? The struggle, the worry, the pain, the loss, the grief is still you. You are still whole, complete, beautiful, extraordinary. Feel that. Thank you.